What is up, gamers? It's your boy The Goods, and we are back for episode number 16 of Narcissu Second. In the last episode, we drank some wine as a 15-year-old. We're going to jail. In this episode, we're going to learn about Nello and Alois. Alois. I looked it up. I googled it. Patraci, I still am not certain on that one. June, a white overcast sky spread out today. This time's assignment is different from usual. In front of the hospital, my head was full of anticipation about a person I haven't seen yet. In the middle of the long hallway, I saw the doctor and spoke to him. So, are you really fine with it? Yes, please allow me to. Even if you say that. At my wishes, the doctor showed reluctance. For me still being a university student, isn't the burden too heavy? That was probably the unspoken meaning behind it. The patient is, well, you know, right? Of course, that's exactly why I asked for the assignment. When the doctor had continued looking doubtful, I pressed harder. The source of this was my volunteering to be the helper of a new patient to the hospice. I made sure to bring a letter of recommendation from the church. As I spoke, I handed a single sealed envelope over. Here, the domain of extraordinary acts was not decided by the hospital itself. The wishes of the church often had influence. Alright, I'll inform the director. Thank you very much. Giving a deep bow, I left the place. A helper's application for the 7th floor assignment. That, in itself, wasn't a particularly strange occurrence. Moreover, up until now, I had served 3 hospice patients already. Considering my age, that was a rare amount of helper experience. It could be said that I was a veteran. As to why it was rare, in normal hospitals, no matter how much a person volunteered, it would have been difficult for a university volunteer to be stationed at a hospice. No matter how short-handed the place called the hospice was afforded that consideration. But this is a Christian hospital, and moreover, even compared to other places, it was more strongly a religiously oriented place than medical services oriented. And I am a Catholic. Someone who, before her earliest memories, received the waters of baptism, who actively engaged in public welfare activities. These were probably all of the reasons. But this time's assignment is different from usual. The patient was a child, and also, not just a child, one without guardians and bedridden. Essentially, a child with no relatives, no parents. Of course, that didn't mean the child had no parents at birth. While cruel, leaving a bedridden child, and vanishing just like that, there were many of those kinds of patients, or parents. I didn't want to accept it, but that was also reality. And such a child had no place to go, no relatives. The first take the child would be a Catholic hospital like ours. Perhaps it could be said that it was the last resort. In that merciful stance, it was the aspect of Catholicism itself that was my reason for being faithful. That's why I was not a devoted follower. It didn't matter if it was Baptist or Protestant, I probably wouldn't have cared. Though I had been baptized before I had memories, it was just a coincidence that I was born and raised in a house next to a church. But even if it were a coincidence, I didn't have the resolve to want to swear lifelong service. I was simply a follower of that merciful spirit. The elevator bell chimed. Different from the usual 7th floor, today was to the 5th floor. Headed to greet the Nello I still hadn't seen. The word Nello was a term between us helpers and nurses. Resident to the 7th floor, child without relatives, bringing those together, most likely, had probably been a name taken from a dog of Flanders. It was a pretty disrespectful naming, but even now I didn't know the truth behind it. When I came, it felt already long established. It's just that there was probably no malice behind that name. The reason was whenever it was known that a Nello was coming, the number of doctors, nurses, and helpers who sought the assignment was great. That sort of situation was probably because this was a hospital following Christ's teachings, which aimed at self-sacrificing attitude. And then among those, the helpers assigned to Nello were called, with both respect and jest, Alois. In reality, Patraci would have been closer. However, we are unable to die with them. That was why they were called the closest best friend Alois. And I was one of those who desired the role of Alois. After knocking, I opened the door. Good morning. Good morning. Raising her body up in the bed, the girl looked this way. Above her knees, perhaps because it was past noon, was an already eaten lunch tray. Her voluminous hair left an impression. Oh, what a good girl, you finished it all. Well, really, I don't like broccoli. And One-san is... I didn't introduce myself yet, did I? I'm the helper that just got assigned to you. As I answered, I opened up the certificate and showed her. A child of this age, it might have been pointless, but showing the person now was a set thing here. So treat me well from now on. Me too. She responded with those words, but she looked this way with a puzzled expression. But what's a helper? That was unexpected. It had been likely there were a lot of things she didn't understand, but I hadn't thought it was to this extent. It's different from doctors and nurses. That's... I wondered how I should answer the question. Someone who took care of them. Normally that would have been fine. But from here on out, what faced this girl was the 7th floor, and I was her helper. The Alois for Nello. Normally, unless one was notified, I couldn't be admitted onto the 7th floor, meaning they've been informed that they had already run out of treatments. To be direct about it, the pronouncement that they would die. After they receive that explanation, the hospital receives their agreement and they're finally allowed in. And that was exactly why in many general hospitals, hospices were not offered to children. However, Nello's were different. This place was different. Moreover, if both parents had been Catholics, then even more so. What's wrong, One-san? Sorry. While thinking over the question, what is a helper, I'd fallen silent. Yeah, well, it's something like a friend. One-san is mine? Yep, so say whatever you want without holding back, okay? Quickly, I began cleaning up the tray the girl had already finished eating. Sorry. It's fine, we're friends, so don't be so reserved. I continued speaking to the girl who was still acting reserved. And besides that, I'm happy. Why? You see, from a long time ago, I wanted a friend from another age group. I also wanted a big sister. Oh, then it's decided. As I spoke, I held up my hand. So treat me well here on out, okay? Me too. The burning sunlight, the sound of cicadas. The hand I touched for the first time was warm. A summer day which would soon transfer to the 7th floor. And so we became friends. Nello and Alois became friends. A few days after, as usual, I headed to the girl. Hot. As the early cicadas began to call in earnest, today again looked like it would be a hot day again. After knocking, I opened the door. Good morning. Good morning. The same as yesterday, she lightly raised her body on the bed and exchanged greetings. Just a little bit, she seemed to be lowering her guard, but still, somewhere the girl was reserved. Did the morning temperature check finish already? Yes, it was 97.7 degrees Fahrenheit. I see. There's nothing to worry about, right? As I answered, I cleaned up the breakfast tray. With that, until the afternoon, I'd run out of things I had to do. From the start, there wasn't much for helpers to do. Medical matters were the work of doctors and nurses. At the most, it was on the level of taking temperatures and giving support in their daily lives. However, another way to say it would be that there was no upper limit to supporting their daily lives. And it was exactly for that reason that it wasn't doctors or nurses, but the assigned helper who was given the name Alois. Well then, shall we go to the cafeteria? But I just finished eating. Ice cream. Ice cream. It's hot after all. But she made a complicated face and looked down. She must be thinking of something besides politeness. Don't worry, One-san is buying. And so, as if I were giving her back a push, we headed to the cafeteria. Since it was still morning, there was a scattering of people. Within that, we sat next to each other at a table. So, tell me whatever you'd like. Okay, but, like I said, don't be so reserved. As I spoke, I turned to the cafeteria menu. Then, vanilla. Okay, vanilla, got it. And what should I have? Wait, there's only one type of ice cream, isn't there? Looks like it. With this, there's no room for choice, is there? Well, I'll go buy them quick. Leaving the girl seated, I headed to the counter. Looking around, children of a similar age as the girl were eating together with their mother and father. Of course, a child of that age eating alone in the hospital cafeteria would be more strange. But the girl's parents were already gone. Of course, the girl didn't know. Wasn't allowed to know. Here, sorry for the wait. Wow, lots of ice cream. Yeah, the size was smaller than I expected, so just one would be rather lonely. And so the rule is, if one person gets two... okay? Oh, is it you don't like ice cream? It's not that. If Mom sees me, she might be angry, because she always said I couldn't have ice cream. Saying that, she looked down sadly. It's alright, because One-san is with you. Really? Yeah, and the doctors and nurses won't get mad either. Okay. This time, she happily extended her hands toward a spoon. It was probably a given, but since coming here, she likely hadn't eaten any. However, someone of this child's age, there was no way they could hate ice cream or chocolate. While pondering that, I watched the girl eating, and after just a few spoonfuls, once again her hand stopped. What's wrong? Oh yeah, Mom. Lately, she hasn't been coming to visit. Before, she came to visit me every day. I see. Beyond that, I couldn't say any more. There was no need for this child to know. At least in my case, it didn't seem like I'd be able to tell her. Your parents are long gone. You, all alone, from here on will go to the 7th floor. There was just no way I could say that. And sadly, I learned that it was a very common thing, leaving behind only the patient, the family disappearing. There were probably various reasons, financially, psychologically. I thought it was a very heartless and cruel act, but I couldn't rise to unilaterally blame the parents. Leaving behind a child on a sickbed and disappearing, no parent would do so willingly. Beyond the cliched words of being worn out from giving care, their agonies and burdens must have been great. I just felt this world was sad. And once again, I learned it was another part of reality. What's wrong, One-san? Nothing. And instead of that, here, if you'd like, I can give you my share. But it's fine, don't hold back. Moving the girl's already finished dishes aside, I replaced them with my own dishes of ice cream. Isn't it good? Mmm. This ice cream is good, isn't it? Saying that, she showed me a smile. The usually reserved girl smiled for the first time for me. A hospital cafeteria's cheap vanilla. For the first time, she looked at me with a happy face. A few days after, the burning sunlight and sound of cicadas. Today, I also headed to the girl's place. The other day, she'd been transferred to the 7th floor, but nothing in particular seemed to have changed. So the greatest worry now was the question about her parents. I had no confidence how I would answer that. The elevator bell rang. Good morning. It's hot today too, isn't it? I exchanged greetings with a nurse friend. How is it? Already used to here yet? Yeah, originally on the 5th floor, it was a single room too after all. The here that she spoke about was on the 7th floor, and used to was of course speaking about me. Could it be that you were together all night? Well, I'm not used to sleeping on the spare beds. Really, when there's no guardians around, it's difficult in many ways, isn't it? At the words, I gave a vague nod. And by the way, what she was hinting at were how there were no guardians around. What she hinted at was that they had vanished without a trace. Wasn't that they had vanished without a trace, but they were no longer in this world. The cause of death was something the head nurse didn't tell me. It was only that it was an accident or sickness. The remaining possible causes of death were but one, and that was why no more was asked by either of us. Even in this modern age, for Catholics, it was a great sin and a forbidden act. Well, if there's anything, just say, okay? Yeah, thanks. I opened the door after knocking. Good morning, how are you feeling? Today seems good. As always, the girl raised her upper body in bed and looked over. As I sat down in the folding chair next to the bed. And just like that, we spent most of the whole day together. From the window, the bright sunlight shone on her profile. Once again, we would talk about little things. That was our usual appearance. Today, the flowers are pretty too, aren't they? Decorating the windowsill were a number of small flower vases. In them shone bright whites and yellows. A nurse decorated for me. I see. Isn't that wonderful? As I answered, I added water to the vase of yellow gerberas while the girl happily watched my actions. From a glance, it was the scene of a common, everyday hospital room. However, the truth was different. In reality, visitors' flowers for the girl didn't exist. Since there are no relatives, there's no one to bring them. But at this hospital, especially for the 7th floor, someone always sent flowers. That was the nurses and us helpers. Everyone on the floor shared in it. And when that wasn't enough, some were selected for the flower beds. That was also another part of the job. Even for the people who had absolutely no visitors, it was a situation where we made it so there were always flowers. Do you like gerberas? Yes, but I like the white ones more. As she spoke, she pointed to another vase, at the white lilies. Generally, as visiting flowers, their scent was too strong. The vase wasn't one we prepared. But I can imagine who the sender was. A person who would send such a gift, there weren't that many. A church person brought those. Indeed, looks like they've decided to come. They said they'd come again. The girl happily answered that she liked lilies. Most likely it was a priest or a sister who had came to visit. Considering the girl's circumstances, it wasn't surprising the church would do something like that. Even for people who were not of the faithful, they were included without distinction in a merciful spirit. In a way, it was exactly like this place. But for this girl, she probably didn't understand it much. Even if both parents were Christians, the girl herself had not been baptized and was young and innocent. Oh yes, about Mom and Dad. At the sudden question of her parents, I jumped. This is the one thing I worried about the most. I was told they're on a long trip. So for a while they won't be able to come visit. Who said such a thing? I swallowed down the words of the immediate question. Perhaps a doctor or a nurse? There was also a chance it had been a priest or a sister. But no matter who it was, it didn't seem like I'd be able to contradict it. To speak of this lie, to say we simply shouldn't lie, that is an evil. I wasn't childish enough to believe this would be the end of the matter. I didn't know who had said it, but their feelings were probably the same as mine. If someone from a long distance were to find an excuse to condemn this act, I would want them to teach us, who were directly in contact with things some other way. If this act were to be called evil, then all of us, I suppose, would be evil people. Going along with the lie would probably mean I was an accomplice. I wonder if Mom will come back soon. Always, she'd make pudding for me. So, Ane-san, we'll eat it together, right? Yeah, I'll look forward to it. Beyond that, I couldn't find any words to reply with. It was just, against that intense pressure of being able to say nothing, I couldn't help but string together words I could. Oh yeah! Say, let's go to the cafeteria. But just before I ate breakfast. It's fine, I'll buy you ice cream again. Once again, as if pushing her from behind, we headed to the usual hospital cafeteria. The Nello and Alois who became friends. Really, it was closer to being patriarchy, but we were unable to die with them. That's why I was Nello's #1 friend, Alois. But continuing to hold secrets, could I be called a friend? And also, the fact the girl herself would soon be dying. Just how long must that be concealed? The cicadas continued their incessant crying. A few days after, today, a clear summer sky also spread wide. Under that sky, the two of us went into the courtyard. Phew, today's a bit hot, isn't it? So how about we go back? I want to stay out a bit longer. A bit more. As she spoke, she turned a happy face towards me. She had really become attached to me. It probably didn't need saying, but there were no people around of similar age. The majority of the 7th floor were elderly. That was why, even more so, I made to always be near her. Huh? Why does that place not have flowers? Before her eyes spread a flower bed. Among the colorful flowers and the green grass that could be seen, only one corner was in a barren state. Did they wither? Oh, well, I can't say they did. That's a little sad. As she spoke, she seemed a bit desolate. But that area was for flowers that bloomed in the spring. Having already finished blooming, they were simply gone now, as they should be. But you know, next month they'll plant seeds again. I'm sure it'll be lively again. Oh, okay. At those words, she once again answered with a happy face. To that girl, I continued the words that I suddenly recalled. The wilderness and dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. These are words from the book of Isaiah. And so I began to explain to the girl. On the 35th chapter, there was this passage, the wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like a crocus it shall blossom. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. I don't think I understand very well. Well, don't be sad because there's nothing. It's because there's nothing that joy can be born. Might be what it means. Wow, Onesan's amazing. I'm not really anything like that. For some reason the girl was impressed, but I denied it. I just don't know the words of scripture and saints, that's all. It's not as if they're my own words, you see. Then Onesan knows a lot, doesn't she? Well, I might know a lot about that sort of thing. A professor? A professor, eh? I wouldn't go that far, but it sounds kinda nice, doesn't it? Then, do you know about that? As she spoke, what she pointed to was the phoenix palm growing at the hospital's entrance. I've been thinking that's a pineapple tree, but... Pineapple? It's really big, right? Well, it's true they look similar. So why do you think no one's eating it? She wasn't joking. I was pretty sure this child was saying it seriously. Should I correct her? Should I agree with her? For just a moment I debated. Yes, you've noticed the important part, didn't you? Truth is, that's a pineapple tree. Just as I thought. But you know, this must absolutely be kept a secret. Why? Because if everyone found out, it'd be eaten up, right? So until it grows much bigger, we're keeping it a secret. I see. Just like a professor. The girl answered as if greatly impressed. And you know, I also know some other things. What? What? With expectant eyes, the girl looked at me. And facing the girl, I took from my pocket my rosary and... May the bountiful blessings and grace of the Lord be upon you. Joining my hands, closing my eyes, I offered a prayer for the girl. Okay, all done. What was that just now? Is it like a magic spell? A magic spell? Well, it's a bit different from that. Certainly, if it were a saint or an archbishop, maybe it could have been called a spell or magic. But I was neither a pastor nor the clergy, just one of the faithful. So it wasn't anything extravagant like a sacrament. It was nothing more than a simple prayer. Then a charm? Something like that. That, or just a way to ease the mind. From the start, I wasn't expecting it to be effective, and really that reason wasn't why prayer existed to begin with. But, well, since we're at it, calling it magic is fine. Got it. And then she showed me her usual bright smile. We who had become friends, Nello and Alois. Up until now, even though we were supposed to be close friends, I who could do nothing other than buy her ice cream. Such an Alois found one more thing she could do for the girl. Kindness. We'll explore that in the next episode, but for now, this has been long enough. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.